Hi Siri, I'm looking for a new podcast, one that preferably is hosted by a UF Hall of Famer, one that airs every weekday that would bring me everything I need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions. Siri, is there such a show?
Have you heard of PodUp with Matthews in the morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or any podcast platform?
Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? UF Hall of Famer Shane Matthews has a show every weekday. I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow. Thanks, Siri.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It is Wednesday. We got JC. We'll have Graham Hall from 24/7 Sports give us his thoughts on what's going on at practice, things of that nature. Tommy says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Happy birthday to Tim Tebow. And you're and Tommy's the big 40 today. Well, congratulations. Happy birthday, Tommy. All right, let's go to the Titan & More hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and we're joined by JC. Good morning, JC. You and your dog.
That'd be Toto.
It's a little rat. That's a little rat.
It's dog. A cute little dog named Toto. Toto. She's a good girl. QB, I am so excited. This is a great time of year. And I got to say, I wasn't on yesterday. I know you and Buddy were on. I liked listening to Buddy. But it was great seeing some of the old legacy media guys at Spurs on Monday night. Saw my man Andy, who's a loyal watcher of this program as well. Food was great. Freddie Weavy was great. I know you said all your pleasantries, but I just got to say, seeing Steve Russell, Pat Dooley, Jeff Cardozo, and meeting some of the other guys, Mike Bianchi, my favorite, Chris Harry, who I traveled with the most during my tenure at TV20 on collaborative trips, was just such a fun night for me, and it really brought back a lot of memories. So great job done by great time, and a great job done by all at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. And I saw some real pros. I love meeting Edgar Thompson, who is a guest on this show. He's a true writer of stories, as is Bianchi, of course, and a great reporter. And I just Steve Russell, to me, I listened to him when I was 9 years old on AM 850 when he was a disc jockey over at WRUF QB. 9 years old, you were 3, and he was playing hits on AM radio, which was before FM radio. We didn't have FM back then. That's how far this goes back. Just love seeing him, and I thought Pat Dooley looked great. Just, he's the guy everybody calls when they're out of town. They want to know about the Gators and they live in Ohio. They call Pat Dooley. So it was a real joy. I really had a good time. The only person I wish I had met that I didn't get to meet was Sean Kelly, but I'm sure one day you'll introduce me to Sean Kelly.
All right, we'll do that.
Am I keeping you awake?
Yeah.
That's
now
all right.
We discussed JC reminiscing of his TV20.
Well, no, it's just the people. It's the people
days.
that I don't get to see these people ever anymore. And it was great talking to Chris Harry about our stories. And oh my gosh, what a good time.
Yeah.
What a good time.
I was just looking at Twitter while you were reminiscing there, JC, and I guess Kirk Herbstreit's catching a lot of backlash for his comments.
You know what? Good for him. He doesn't care anymore.
I agree.
What does he care? I mean, if somebody doesn't say something, QB, we all are guilty of just enabling a lot of things in this country that are backwards. And that's a topic that I'm not as passionate about it because I don't have a daughter, but if I were, I'd be a national spokesperson somehow for my daughter's sport. It's so tragically sad that people enable mental disease in this country. And I will say that here. And I don't care because it's the truth. And the truth shall set you free, QB.
Yeah. So anyway, good for
Mark can tell everybody what he's talking about. You and I know.
Well, he basically said that men have zero business being in women's sports, and he went back on, said it again, and good for him. I agree 1,000% with him, and nobody will ever change my mind. I mean, it's the damn dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
And it's it's really sad for the women and the girls who compete to have to
Correct.
deal with this. They didn't have
Yeah,
to.
they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't. I mean,
Right. They didn't buy into this.
it might be one of the dumbest
It is.
subjects ever in the history of our country when you think about it.
And it doesn't
Okay.
want to go away. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't. It won't. It's very simple. Just don't allow it, and it'll go away. All right, JC, what do you want to talk about today?
You mean, I know the injuries are.
We're going to have golf picks, by the way.
Okay, I'm ready. And then on Friday, we're going to get to do a couple football picks. Is that right or wrong? Am I wrong about that?
Wow, there aren't any games this weekend.
No, I'm sorry. It's a week from this weekend, but I'll be in another country next week. So I'll just text you my picks. But we won't worry about that now. Injuries are a big part of what's going on in practice for so many schools. And we've been affected here in Florida. Texas A&M's been affected. I hear of these injuries that are potentially season-ending for so many players.
The Longhorns lost another running back to a torn Achilles.
I mean, I just hate it for them, and I don't want kids to be hurt as they get ready to play football. They work all year long, and for this month and for this moment that's so close, and to have it taken away, yeah, they get the year of eligibility back, but who knows what they're going to be like a year from now? It's just sad. And it's just part of the game, right? Injuries are part of the game, which is why this schedule that we look at, people talk about the difficulty of it. And I admit that it is difficult, but nobody knows what these teams are going to be. The composite makeup of these teams by the time the season starts and throughout the season, with the way injuries impact every single school playing this sport. It's just a part of the game. And it's tough. It's tough, especially when some of these players who get hurt are some of the highlighted players on these rosters. Not that it's good for any player.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking about this the other day when I was at the scrimmage and the Jamari lines went down. I was thinking, I was going back to my college days. It's hard to remember, but I don't remember in my 3 years playing here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had one teammate that was lost for the year.
Yeah.
At any portion of those 3 years. And it's almost like
what's changed?
I think because
bigger, faster,
kids
stronger.
work out so much nowadays.
Right.
I think they might overtrain. I don't know if that's a fact. I mean, look, you have to do it to keep up, but back in those days when football season was over, we went and did other stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was going, you know what? Have I been on a team where I lost a teammate early in the year for the year due to injury? And I can't think of one.
Yeah. It's very strange. This Texas A&M running back, Reuben Owens. There's a couple others that I'm not mentioning. You mentioned Baxter for Texas.
But another kid went down for Texas yesterday.
And now there's another one. Well, it's just the way it is. I don't know. I don't know if they're well. Obviously, the athletes are bigger, they're faster, but they're also stronger. But I don't know if that avoids an injury. I don't know if it helps create more potential injuries. But yeah, it does seem different today than it did back when you were playing. Because I remember in the '90s, we didn't talk about ACL. No. Well, I mean, we just didn't. It didn't seem to come up as often, and that was a good thing, of course. But it was different. It was definitely different back then. So I don't know. We'll see. That's the story, though. Johnson was the first name we had here locally. He's week to week. You say he's going to play. I don't know. I mean, maybe he gets 10, 15 touches of the ball. It'd be hard for me to think of him being 100% with an injury like this, but arthroscopic knee surgery is no joke. And now look at the Minnesota Vikings yesterday. This is in the NFL, but J.J. McCarthy, he's getting an arthroscopic procedure done, and he won't play in the first game or 2 or 3 even. So
really,
yeah, J.J. McCarthy, he threw 2 touchdown passes the other night.
Well, why is he not going to play in the first couple of games if he's getting scoped?
Well, because they said his status for the season opener is highly doubtful. And that's just what I saw in the ESPN crawl. But I don't think you ever want to rush back a guy from a knee injury. Now, I know what you did with your knee surgery on your meniscus and so forth, and this was a meniscus issue. But everybody's different in how they handle injuries, I would guess. Some respond better than others. But I think out of a caution, they're going to have Sam Darnold start for Minnesota. And if you watch Justin Jefferson running up and down the sideline for the Vikings the other night, you would have thought that this was the second coming of Fran Tarkenton when J.J. McCarthy was throwing those lobs to wide open receivers. Now, granted, you're right. This is preseason, and those guys are not going to be probably that wide open during the year when the starters are playing. But still, it was good execution. It was a good night for a rookie quarterback from Michigan. And so I think that injuries hopefully will take a back seat going forward, and we won't have to deal with all this, because I want the real teams to be out there at full throttle. One quarterback who broke his foot last year is the guy we're going to see in the swamp. His name is Connor Wegman for Texas A&M. Now, they say he's injury prone, but that's not true at all. Actually, in his first year at Texas A&M, he didn't play because he was sitting behind a couple of other quarterbacks until he finally got his chance at the end of the year because those other guys got hurt. But then last year, he breaks his foot and he misses the majority of the season. But they're very high on him at Texas A&M. So we're going to get a taste of that probably in the third week here in Gainesville. And that'll be a good team to see come into the swamp, because they rarely ever do. So I think it's an important first couple of weeks for this program. And you have stated correctly that the Miami game is the biggest one we've had here at least 2 decades. I agree with that. Biggest starting season opener. Yeah.
Greg asked on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mello, did y'all see Deion's presser? For some reason, he's pissed off at anyone at CBS and won't answer any tough questions. I didn't see it.
Yeah, he is. I don't know if the pressure's getting to him. I don't know if it's possible in a place like Boulder, Colorado, but he did not treat the media well. I don't know what this is about media hatred all of a sudden. I don't envy at all the job Edgar and these guys have today, because how we talked about how different it is, how relationships today are different. They don't reach out to the media the way they used to. We used to have Tuesday afternoons, media day with you, and all these other players would show up. The coaches would show up. Coach Spurrier would always give David Lamb his solo interview, and then the media boys would all get together and do it. But I got to talk to players while he was grouped over there with all the other guys, and then I got to talk to him individually because I was a local guy. Where's the local guy at? So the thing is that it's tough to deal with media. I mean, it's tough to deal with players and coaches these days. Social media has really taken an effect on that. I think a lot of it has to do with that. Social media is very negative.
Reggie, yes, it is. It's toxic. It's rat poison. Reggie says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, 100% players these days overtrain, especially in high school. It's all money driven. I agree, 1,000%.
Wow. The fact that they're letting high school get into the NIL issue, and the fact that that's happened is just a failure from the grown-ups that derive policy. There is no reason whatsoever that we should have high schools involved in any kind of NIL arrangement, in my opinion. These kids are growing. They don't know a damn thing, and they are learning as they go, and they are developing their bodies and so forth. And we're throwing money at them? Who the hell? What kind of adults are running these associations that have allowed this? Who are the grown-ups in the room these days? I always don't. Yeah. When I see a kid that's really messed up, I always look at the parent first. I always do, because kids don't know anything. QB, you and I know that. We raised 2 of them. They don't know a damn thing. They learn from their parents, and they learn from their dominant influences. And that's where the problems start, right there.
Mark says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, Warren Sapp ought to be a calming effect for Deion at Colorado. Is Sapp coaching with him?
Yes, he is.
Oh, boy. Tighten up our text line. Josh in Mississippi says, QB, I think Asa Turner is the new, quote, Ricky Pearsall for this team, but on the defensive side of the ball, brings an excellent work ethic, knowledge of the game, and grind to the team that we need. Do you agree? Yeah, I think he's been around a long time, played in the national championship game last year. I also think Joey Slackman is kind of that veteran type leader, that Graham Mertz, Ricky Pearsall type leader on the defense.
Well, and let's hope like hell that Devin Moore stays healthy, and he will be as well as a junior. He'll be a leader on that defense. He's a big name on that defense. And I've talked about Pup Howard. Look, QB, they're going to be a lot better on defense. I don't think you have to worry about that.
They can't be worse. I honestly don't think they can be any worse.
No, they cannot be. It's impossible.
Only if we roll you out there at the 3 technique, we could be worse.
statistically or otherwise, it can't be worse. But just got to stay healthy, man. Got to stay healthy.
Bravo Dave on YouTube, brought to you by Clark Clemens, thinks Dion will be gone in December. You think they'd fire him?
No, I don't think they'll fire him. I think he'll just get tired of it. He'll either be on the NFL Network back there and with the Michael Irvin, if Michael Irvin's still on there even.
I don't think he's on it either.
Well, he might not be. But when they had Michael Irvin, Warren Sapp, and Dion on TV, I really did enjoy watching it. It was funny. But as far as the coach goes, I always question why the hell he went to Colorado to begin with. But he
had no other opportunities. He wanted to go to a big school.
Well, yeah. Well, he picked a real dumpster fire. Who, by the way, the other dumpster fire in that conference at the time was Kansas, right here. And the guy who's running that program now, that's a real football coach.
Well, they weren't the dumpster fire at the same time. It was a few years ago.
They weren't. But Lance Leipold brought a program that had an Olympic track running around its field in an old broken down stadium and couldn't find any players. And somehow he established the program at Kansas.
So JC, I want you to answer this.
We're looking for that here, by the way.
I want you to answer this. Joseph on Facebook Live says Vegas still has the Gators at a 2.5 plus 2.5 underdog. Yeah. ESPN has our winning percentage for the game at 57.3%. Who's going to be right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on who you think is going to win, right? So I look at that 2.5 points as being somewhat marginal to unimportant because you always seem to give the team 3 points at home, an extra 3 points because they're the home team. I don't know who came up with that rationale, but it's something that seems to be universally accepted under the term of conventional wisdom. 3 points is what the home team gets. So that would cover the 2.5 quite easily. But I think we're looking at a close game until the fourth quarter when one of the two teams will break away. That's what I see we'll have. I think we'll have a close game, and then I think Florida, hopefully, will extend a lead or come back and then extend a lead in the latter parts of that game, and it'll be over. It's a toss-up. A lot of folks believe in Miami's resurgence this year because of the new players they have, and we'll talk about this as we get closer to the game, QB. But they're going to be better too. I think you can make that case, definitely.
Florida victorious joined today to help make Florida victorious. All right, JC. Real quick, Frank on the Titan MR text line says, does JC think parents should take advantage of a kid's opportunity to make money to put aside for their future?
This is called high school. What parents should do is have their kids learn time management, practice an instrument or play a sport, and do things that high school kids do. We're not talking about financial planning. If parents really care about their kids' college education, they would have started before high school. But if they didn't have the ability to do that, they would start thinking about that on their own. This is not about, seeing how much money we can extract from some sucker out there that's got more than he can spend. I think the reality of money being involved in high school athletics completely ignores the whole point of what high school is. I mean, let's define what high school is first, and then let's define how kids should proceed through high school into something bigger and better, and go through the process of developing your mind and developing your body as you learn how to be a man or a woman. And then we will be a high school graduate. And then high school graduates go to college. And that's where they learn the ways of life and so forth and so on. As the coach says, and so forth. So I am so against this. Let's just throw money at this kid who's 14 years old, and by God, they're going to be set up for life. That's a fallacy. These people don't know how to deal with money in most cases. So that's just I just don't agree with that premise whatsoever on the text that you just read. It's not.
Well, there you have it.
I mean, do you agree? Or do you?
I think I still think NIL is ridiculous. Period. Regardless of what age you are.
But let's talk about what high school should be.
No, high school should be here. We talk about this every year on my program, especially when we start the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup, which will start next week because that's week 1 of most high school football. We'll have Mike Rideout on. Like IMG, I think is the dumbest idea of if your kid has a chance to go to IMG. That means because you're going there for free. That
Correct.
means you already have multiple scholarships to go to the next level.
Right.
So why go there? Go play with your local buddies that you won't get to play with once you leave high school.
Yeah.
Because those are memories you'll have a lifetime when you come back for your high school reunions, and try to win games with your buddies. Don't go to some stupid all-star game where you're playing for nothing. It's just
And by
stupid.
the way, here's another pro tip for all you young parents who are about to have your kids go into high school. If it's possible, have that kid play more than one sport.
Absolutely.
Have him play basketball, baseball, track and field, whatever it is. If he's a football, I mean, the more he does, the better it will be as he develops his brain. And let's talk about the things that are important to the child and not the stinking bank account, which I know is important. Don't look, I've had 28 years of dealing with people's bank accounts. But the point is that we've got to develop these young people who through their formative years and get them to play 2 sports if they can. If they can. I mean, it's
play
a lot.
3 sports. Play it all, baby. Play it all.
Play an extra sport. Get out there and play an extra sport. I tried to play soccer and baseball. Okay, I wasn't big enough to play football, but I played soccer and baseball.
Joseph says, how about St. Thomas? I'm not a huge private school guy, but St. Thomas is part of playing for a state title. You can at least do that. You can't do that at IMG.
No.
All right. Rick says, didn't players at VHS have to pay for football? Well, that's another problem, Rick. The state of Florida is backwards because, let me say this, Alachua County is backwards because most counties in America support their athletic high school programs. It does not happen in Alachua County. So the kids have to raise money for a freaking pair of socks, for a chin strap. It's ridiculous. Don't even get me going there. Don't even get me going there.
Right. But these schools' booster clubs, if you want to support them, go to the booster club president and have a conversation. And if you want to write a check for $5,000, by God, by all means, do it. The booster club will get the weight room looking better. The booster club will get those trips. When our Shane, your son and my son played football at the same school, those boosters and those booster club families were so instrumental in getting the support these kids needed to travel on buses, to have lunches, to do all of the things necessary to make it as comfortable as possible for these youngsters. And that included everybody on the Gainesville High School Purple Hurricane football family. And that's how you can support financially these kids.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous that they have to even go do all that. That's only in Alachua County for the most part. All right, let's get to our Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte surrounding areas. Speaking of that, Kevin on the Take No More Text sign says, looking forward to the Peachland Dental golf picks. Mama needs a new pair of shoes.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, baby, you're catching on, my man. Yeah, that's a.
All right, JC, we are in the playoffs on the PGA Tour. They're going to be in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, what a great! I love this tournament. The Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee.
This is cool because most of the players they'll be wearing spikes that the kids painted.
It's a great event.
Well, they're not really spikes anymore, but you know what I'm talking about.
If you're old enough to remember Danny Thomas, but the St. Jude's Children's Hospital, that's another one. If you want to give some money away, it's not giving it away. It would really be great to give it to that.
All right, I'm going to let you pick first. We're going to pick 4 golfers.
We're going to go with 4. I'm going to start off with the Gator who's been playing really good golf here in the last 2 months, and that's one William Horschel. Right. I don't even know if he goes by William, but Billy Horschel is playing great golf. I'm going to take him on a course like this. I think he'll kill it.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Tony Finau.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see his long game will really, really render this course hopeless or helpless, I should say. How about, you know what? I'm going to go all USA. I'm not taking one foreign player this time. I'm just over it. I want to go with Harris English, the Georgia Bulldog. He just kind of lingers around at the leaderboard, and on Sunday, he either fades away or he's right there fighting it. So take Harris English for me.
I'm taking foreigners.
Okay,
I'm going to take Corey Connors from Canada.
All right, Corey Connors. You're still in the Olympic mode. I see that. All right, I'm going to go with the guy who strikes the ball great. He never wins. Again, I'm taking long shots here, and I'm okay with that. Huh?
He strikes the ball well, but he never wins.
Never wins. Tom Hoagie.
Oh,
Guy's a great
Hodes.
ball. He's a great hitter of the golf ball. He
Yes.
never wins.
I am going to go with the guy, I don't know about this year, but last year made more birdies on tour than anybody, Sanjay M.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of I've been watching Golf Channel a little bit this week. A lot of people like him for the tournament. I would love to take the Gala. I'd love to take Shoffley, but I'm going to take my guy Maverick McNeely in this case. And
JC, are you okay today?
I know. I'm not taking the odds on.
You didn't take any of the top players in the world. What the hell's your problem?
Because this course to me is something that all of these players can exploit, and I think we're going to have a different player. It's just a hunch.
Well, my last pick, I'm going with Ju Young.
Ju Young. Well,
with Paul Tesori on his bag.
So
he's been playing good golf.
Yeah, last week you took Aaron Rai. Unbelievable pick. Unbelievable pick. Probably the best pick of the year, other than maybe my DeChambeau U.S. Open pick. But Rai is an unknown.
I mean, he's one of I guarantee you, people that watch this podcast, they've heard of Bryson DeChambeau. I guarantee you 1% may have heard of Aaron Rai.
Yeah. Well, the ones who don't follow golf, us golfer fans, we know exactly who that is. But so go ahead and give us the rundown again. Who we have?
All right. So for the Peachland Dental picks for the, what do they call this Memphis Golf Classic?
The FedEx St. Jude's Championship.
Yeah. It's the first round of the playoffs. And the top, how many top 70 move on? Or what is it,
Something
JC?
Like
do you know?
Yeah, I think it is. They make a cut from this number down to 75, something like that. Yeah.
All right. So JC goes with Billy Horschel, Harris English, Tom Hoagie, and Maverick McNeely. Yeah, you got. I don't know where Tom Hoagie played his golf. I'm embarrassed. I don't know that. Mav McNeely played at Stanford, Harris English, Georgia. Obviously Horschel at UF. I go with Ju Young Kim, Sanjay M, Corey Connors, and Tony Finau.
And so we are not taking favorites this weekend, folks. So I would recommend, at least if you're going on Hard Rock, which you should go on, to take a top 10 or a top 20 finisher or even a winner. Take one of the big shots. Take, Rory, or take Scheffler, or take Xander, because they'll likely be there. But they don't play this course that often. Those guys don't play in this tournament that often. It's these other kids that play. I think Maverick McNeely showed me a lot with 3M, and I think he could really light up this place in Memphis. So, hey, we'll see how it turns out. And if we hit on this, we need to do a national golf show or something.
So this is why you and I, we just say stuff and none of it makes sense sometimes. Tony chimes in and says that they're down to 50 after this weekend. Then they go to 50. Eastlake, and there's only 30 left.
You said 70, so it's 50. All right.
Well, that's 20 dudes. Do
you work on the Golf Channel, QB?
I don't.
Okay. Just check. I was wondering if you did Golf Channel sidebar work. So
no,
it's okay not to know that. I think it's just perfectly fine not to know that. I know things about the Kansas Jayhawks that a lot of folks
that nobody cares.
They do care. They absolutely care. People.
All right,
care.
Before we get you out of here and get to talking Gator football, Joe says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, my daughter waited on Harris English a bunch when she was in college.
Yeah.
That he was a terrible tipper every time.
Yeah, probably so. These guys can be cheap. We all understand, by the way, why Kuchar did what he did. I'm glad you figured that out, because I didn't
figure it out. People let me know.
Well, that's
we have
what
great listeners.
Well, but it did make sense after we saw that. Now, $70,000, I don't think that's what he was really trying for. I think
it's his card.
Get his right. So
I think it's interesting that those guys think about that stuff. I mean, obviously they do when you're on the border.
It's their job, dude. It's their job.
No, I know.
Yeah. So I mean, he's played well. But that now makes total sense. But we were really curious about that. But this is what we do on talk shows. We question and then find the answers. And by the way, Graham Hall goes, "You guys want answers?" I just met this young man the other night as well. He had a haircut, by the way. He looks great, and he looks great without one. And he looks great without one too. But he's good friends with my nephew, and man, we had a good time at the Spurs. Graham Hall will give you everything you need, but ask him questions. He'll give you these answers. QB, you gotta let these viewers ask him a lot of questions because they love this stuff. Yeah.
All right, JC, have fun today, whatever you're doing.
I'm going to go get
go run that dog. Don't let that dog. Hey, don't let that dog outside your little screened in porch there, because like a fox or something or a hawk.
We saw
A hawk will come
the hawk
take that damn dog in a
no,
heartbeat.
That damn dog is not going to get swooped up by a hawk.
I promise you it would.
No, hell. But there was a fox on the other side of the fairway last night in dusk. So thank you for the warnings, but we're on it.
All right, that's JC. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. Take a quick timeout. We come back. We'll be joined by Graham Hall talking a little Gator football. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, Titan MRI, Meldon Law, Peachland Dental, QC Kinetics, Campus USA Credit Union, Dave & Buster's. Gridiron sponsors, Comfort Temp, UF Bookstores, Quality Plumbing, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogra State Farm, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, F45. Our touchdown sponsors, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Aikido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, MG&A Wealth, Nest and Wild.
If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogra State Farm Office, a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ograinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. We're going to go back to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by the one and the only Graham Hall, who covers the Gators for 24/7 Sports. How you doing, my man?
Doing great. Always good to be here, man. Thanks for having me. In the middle of fall camp, so looking forward to some football, man. It finally feels.
Are you worn out, like getting up and having to go cover the Gators? Are you sore? Is your hand sore from writing? I mean, it's that time of the year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't make excuses when you're seeing those guys out there hit each other. You know, when you're out there for 15 minutes sweating, I think you kind of appreciate everyone out there for 2+ hours every single day, you know, working their tail off in that heat, because that thing is brutal, man. I was out there for 15 minutes yesterday, just absolutely sweating buckets. So I'm not sore. I'm ready for football to be here. You know, this is what we spend all summer preparing for. So I'm eager for it to start.
All right, before we jump into football, obviously a few days ago, big news, C.J. Ingram, the son of Cornelius Ingram, commits to Todd Golden, the basketball team. Big pickup, don't you think? I mean, he's a hell of a player.
Yeah, and has a ton of potential, you know, still has room to improve, but aggressive at driving to the rim, plays a very fast style of play, smart ball distributor, you know, 6'3" guard who I think kind of projects to be at that 2 spot for a team, and someone who has a pretty interesting story. You know, as you and I were talking about, he played football as well. And back in, you know, even as recently as May and April, he was receiving interest from some teams at football. But I think a lot of people realized that his future was as a Division I basketball player. And he has really picked up a ton of offers over the last 4 months. Florida came into the mix and has aggressively pursued him after Todd Golden watched him at a couple of camps, and a guy who they feel is going to continue to develop at a high rate. A good pickup for this 2025 class, gives them 2 guys now. They also have a commitment from Lloyd, who, you know, you look at how they have identified guys at the recruiting level, guys who are going to fit their system, and someone who is, I think, going to really, like I said, develop well and keep improving. Kind of, you've seen this legacy push at football, but you get a guy who, you know, comes from a family who understands what it takes, has taken coaching well his whole life, is just relentless at devoting himself to improving. I think it's a very wise pickup for Florida, especially when you look at the other teams who were after him. So another promising guy for Florida, top 100 prospect, a guy who I think is going to continue to rise in the rankings as more people see what he can do and his potential. Like I keep saying, his potential is massive, has to refine a few aspects of his game, but a guy who you can clearly, you look at him on the court, you see the skill set, you see what he can become.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player. No question about it. All right, we got a text here on the Titan Mart text line from Kevin. Says, can you ask Graham what is up with Hayes Fawcett taking shots at UF? You want to fill us in? I have no idea what he's referring to.
Look, I know that tweet got a lot of interest on Saturday night. I'm not going to, let me say this. Hayes does a great job, works relentlessly, a young kid as well. I know how hard it is to break into this industry as someone in your 20s. I went through that as well myself. I see it time and time again. People come out of the journalism program and have a difficult time carving a role for themselves out in this evolving era of sports media. Anytime I see someone who manages to do it and kill it like Hayes has done, I got nothing but respect for him. And let me make it 100% clear. I don't necessarily buy into the narrative that Hayes is the one who is putting the Florida, over Florida out there on commitment graphics. I know that conspiracy has been out there and has been pretty rampant among Florida fans when they see a lot of recruits say they picked so-and-so over Florida. I just found this one particularly interesting. Keenan Britt, a guy who, his brother played at Auburn, KJ Britt, I think a pretty well-known name. I thought it was just pretty interesting that Keenan had put out a top 5 back in July of, a top 5 schools that didn't include Florida. Florida was kind of one of the late schools to offer him. They offered him back in the middle of June, I think on June 18th. Maybe it's an indication of the ground that Florida made up in his recruitment over the previous month. I don't know that whatsoever. Maybe Florida was one of the top 3 schools. What I do believe is that when Hayes makes these graphics, he often asks the recruit, who did you pick your school over? And they are probably saying Florida. That is certainly something that I believe to be the case. Again, let me say this once again to be clear. This is not something that I'm alleging that Hayes is doing whatsoever. Got nothing but respect for the work he does and how he is just commanded in this era where videos are harder to turn around and graphics are the way to announce recruitments now. How he's pretty commanded the commitment market right now with the work that he does. This is not something I'm going at him for. I just found it interesting that yet another player, someone who didn't have Florida in their top 5, said over Florida there. That kind of surprised me. It surprised some people that I talked to. I didn't think it would get as much interest as it did. I didn't think that, a site would write an article about the quote unquote conspiracy whatsoever. I encourage everyone to follow Hayes, even though he works at our quote unquote competitor at On3. The kid does a fantastic job and, is clearly here to stay because he has carved out a role for himself and he's extremely successful at what he does. So, I want to dismiss, I know I gave him some unfair attention and people were piling on. I felt bad about that. I don't want anyone to be coming at the guy or making these accusations because he does a tremendous job at what he does. And I just found that one in particular quite interesting. And I think if I learned anything here, maybe I'll keep my mouth shut about someone else and their work and what recruits are saying, because recruiting can change all the time. As we know, this could have been a case where Florida made a really strong push over the previous 2 months, and they did get into that top 5. It's not on the kid to update his top list before he commits, and maybe Florida was right there. I don't really know necessarily, and again, I'm not saying this is anything that Hayes did. He's just asking prospects who they chose over, and a lot of them are saying Florida because that is what Florida's recruiting efforts have been. They have not given up on players and continually aggressively pursued them, even if they are one of those teams that's late in the mix or they're not in the top 5. They didn't give up on Jarquez Carter, even though he kind of saw them as one of those outside teams looking in. They're not going to give up on players even when they commit elsewhere, because look at the players that Florida has added after the fact. Jameer Grimsley, DeAndre Robinson. I know I'm missing a couple right there. Grayson Howard, you get him year 2 in the portal where he goes somewhere else. Florida's recruiting efforts have consistently been, we're going to keep recruiting you even if you go somewhere else, because in this transfer portal era, you never know what can happen after year 2, and continue to cultivate that bond and build that relationship could pay off for you either late in the cycle if something happens and you decide to flip your commitment, or you go in the portal and you were the team that was aggressively pursuing them the most. So again, not part of the conspiracy. Let's leave Hayes alone. He does a great job. I encourage everyone out there, if you care about recruiting and you want to get the up-to-date news, he seems to be the guy to follow.
Joseph says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, On Three is the CNN of the sports world. All right, so we have a bunch of people asking about O-line. Let's start with the O-line. They want to know who you think is going to start in the game. And everybody has this concern. It's like a daily thing about the right side of the offensive line. Can you touch on that? Who you think is going to start, and are you concerned about the right side?
I don't know if I'm concerned. I do think that it hasn't come along as well as Florida would like, especially the experience that they have there on that right side of the line. You know, they had Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, who I do think is going to be a good player for Florida. Maybe still a little bit of work that is left to be desired right now from him. Continuing to adapt to the increased level of physicality and speed at this level, despite his experience out there at San Diego State. I'm still convinced he's going to be the guy who starts at right tackle. Right guard, Damian George, he made the move from right tackle last year. That's a move that he wanted to make in what he thought was his best interest to not only continue playing a role for Florida, but also he felt that he could, handle the little bit of a drop off in speed along the interior from some of those bigger guys at right guard. That's two guys with experience, like I said, who I think are, going to give Florida the best chance at having a successful offensive line. They communicate well, they have experience, but I think from what I've heard, there is, I think, a little bit of a gap between the left side of the line there with Austin Barber and Najee Harris, and then the right side right there. But when you look at the options Florida has at their disposal at right guard and right tackle, it may be a little bit too late to make a switch, knowing that you prepared for the last 7 months with these guys being your projected starters at the position. I think the key that Florida would like to maybe see a little bit more of, if they're going to debate maybe making a change even in the early part of the season or middle part of the season, is, Cam Waits. That's a guy who is dealing with a little bit of a minor injury right now, but he's pushed for reps both at right guard and at right tackle. I don't think that they think that he's able to be the starter right now at that position, but he certainly is a swing guy who is going to fill in at both spots from what I'm hearing. I think that it all comes down to how well they're going to be able to protect Graham Mertz, avoid some of those, those communication issues, the false start issues. And if Florida can do just that, they'll be fine on the right side of the offensive line. But certainly right now, it is something that we're following, and we'll have to see how that shakes out. But if the season started today, you're going to see Damian George and Brandon Crenshaw Dixon out there for the first snap.
Defensively, we all know Jamari Lyons goes down with a season-ending injury. Who will replace him? I mean, I don't want to say they're deep on the D-line, but they're deeper than they've been in the past. But who's going to need to step up, in your opinion?
That's a kind of a tough loss, because that's someone who had the ability to play, both on the end there and at nose for Florida. Someone who was going to be right behind Cam Jackson at the position, but he was going to play a good amount of snaps for Florida, just knowing that, this is an emotional guy, well-liked in the locker room, really has had a nice off season and set himself up well for having that, third season here in Gainesville. He goes down, and that's just one that hurt a lot of hearts there at Florida. But you look at some of the guys behind him, Desmond Watson, I think more is going to be on his plate. They're going to need to get some valuable snaps out of him there to rotate it at nose. Then you also have a lot of younger guys. You look at DeAndre Robinson. I mentioned him. He's going to see the field as a freshman. You look at Joey Slackman. Maybe they can go a little bit smaller and play him in there as well with kind of a 3 defensive line setup where he can play on the end. You can have Cam Jackson in there in the middle with Caleb Banks. But this is someone, Kelby Collins as well, as I think, another option that you're going to see out there. Boris Brown, the late addition, could be in for now a couple of snaps when he was really kind of seen as a developmental player. But Jamari Lyons was a little bit of a unique player at Florida. It certainly is a loss, but they're going to have to find some other guys to step up, and it maybe changes a little bit what they do, because I don't know if there really is someone on Florida's roster who had the combination of a skill set and that experience that Lyons had. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it, but there's certainly some names to watch. I think DeAndre Robinson is one that is very intriguing to me. They like what they've got in him. Just being a freshman, you know how hard it is to play on the interior of the defensive line and handle the physicality. Fortunately, he enrolled in spring and had a chance to go through the workout program, so maybe he's a bit ahead of where most freshmen typically are, but it certainly is a loss for Florida. I don't want to say it's necessarily a massive one, but it certainly is one where you're going to feel some shockwaves from losing him in the short term.
Text on the Titan MR text line from Jimmy. He says, Graham, do you think Montrell Johnson will be ready to go against Miami?
That's a good question. I don't really have a great answer to that. I do think some of that remains to be seen. I think that, Florida is taking a cautious approach, just knowing what they have behind him at running back. You don't want to bring him back too quickly. You want him to feel comfortable. You want to make sure that thing is fully healed. And even if that means missing the Miami game, I think that you have to take that cautious approach, knowing that you can't, put all your eggs in one basket and maybe hinder yourself for the rest of the year. If I had to make put my money on it and make a prediction, I'd probably say Texas A&M would be an ideal time to bring him back. Even if he's ready ahead of that, rest him against Samford. No offense to the Bulldogs, but I do think that if he's not 100% ready to go and is able to practice before that Miami game, you're going to see Florida go out there with Trayon Webb, Jacoby Jackson, Katie Daniels, Jaden Baugh, and attempt to run the football at a high rate and not miss a beat against the Canes and against Samford. I do think that, what you have in Johnson, again, you don't want to rush him back. He's dealing with a knee injury, and you don't want that to be re-aggravated. If he's good to go, though, let me say this, he is going to be out there. He is a fearless competitor, clearly a leader on this team. If he's able to play, he's going to want to play, and Florida's not going to say no to that. So we're going to find out here in the next 16 days if he is on track to play in the game. I think right now, no one has a great answer, and it all depends on how he recovers in the next 2 weeks. If he's able to go by Miami week, then you're going to see him out there starting against the Canes. But I do think that there's something to be said about making sure that he is 100%, not just maybe taking his word for it, because he'll do anything he can to be out there. And they got to make sure that they don't put him in harm's way and maybe see him suffer some type of setback or not be himself 100%. A guy coming off a knee injury, do you want to put someone out there who maybe is 90, 80% against the team when you do like your options in Webb and Jackson and Daniels and Baugh behind him? I think that Florida has a decision to make, and they're going to have to keep evaluating this daily before the Miami game gets here.
Yeah. Andy's question for you on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Law. The Gators got no votes at all in the AP poll for the first time since 1989. Do you think they'll be in the top 25 by the end of the year?
I do not. I do think that Florida is going to fare better than a lot of people think. I've been telling everyone 7-5. I think that they have a chance to win a lot of these games early on. I like their odds in the Miami game. I think that they're going to compete with the likes of Texas A&M, Kentucky, Tennessee is even going to be, I think, a battle here, just knowing what Tennessee is looking to do this year, even though, always a tough game for the Gators. But I do think, you look at November slate, if they can even win one of those games, in my mind, that would be a success, just knowing how daunting those opponents are. I do think that Florida State is a team that is going to struggle to be in the top 25 as well this season. If you can end up beating Florida State, who knows what happens, against Ole Miss, who knows? If Florida can close out that season with a pair of wins over the Rebels and against the Noles, then yeah, certainly they have a chance to be in the top 25. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but if you go 1-4, or God forbid 0-5, if you're Florida to end the regular season, there's not going to be many people who are going to look at that team and say, oh, they deserve to be ranked in the top 25, even if they pick up 5-6 wins before November gets here.
Live a healthier lifestyle with our bold, flavorful smoothies and our amazing food. Tropical smoothie. When you eat better, you feel better. A few more minutes with Graham Hall here. A lot of people are talking about the running backs. Look, here's the deal. Our running back room is stacked. All those guys are outstanding players. We just don't know from a protection standpoint how they will hold up. That's what Montrell does so well in pass protection. That was Etienne's downfall, quite honestly. The other guys are excellent playmakers with the ball in their hands. So we'll see. All right, Graham, before we get you out of here, somebody wants to know how we stack up against the Miami run defense.
I mean, that's a good question. It's all going to come down to how much they have off the edge here in my mind. I do think that edge position for Florida is extremely impressive. I do think that they're going to set the edge well. I think Tyreek Sapp, Justice Boone, you're going to see them rotate in. Obviously, losing Jamari Lyons is tough, but if Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks, And I'm a big Joey Slackman fan. I think Joey Slackman is going to surprise a lot of people this year. I do think that they're going to be able to, in the front seven, defend against the run at a higher level. Obviously, Grayson Howard, a guy who can, come off the edge as well, certainly looks the part. You get Shamar James back. I mean, that unit should be much better. We'll see what they have at star, because that's going to be a guy who's going to have to blitz as well and kind of fill in some, run defense gaps for Florida here this season. And that's, I think, a big question mark with, Sharif Denson, Aaron Gates. Maybe they run DJ Douglas out there as well to play some star reps. But I do think that you're going to see Florida's pass rush improve, and that they're going to be a little bit better against the run this year, because that certainly was something that left a lot to be desired the first 2 years really of the Napier era. But getting Boone back, Tyreek Sapp has played a full year at the F. They've returned their interior guys, gotten Slackman, have guys like Kelby Collins as well, TJ Searcy, who's going to be, I think, a force to be reckoned with this year. This defense should be better in numerous facets this year, and I do think against the run is going to be an impressive one. I'm not a massive fan of Miami's offensive line. I do think that they have talent, especially there. They got two really, really good guys. But if Florida can get into the backfield and stop some guys behind the line and impose their will, force Cam Moore to get out the pocket, make some downfield throws, an area which I think he kind of has struggled with a little bit, kind of a guy who has also struggled with some turnovers, then I do think Florida is going to be a surprising team on August 31st. Maybe for those outside Gainesville, because Florida internally thinks that they're going to shock the world this season. That's not going to surprise anyone, because a lot of teams come out of the offseason campaign very, very confident. But I do think that Florida's defense is going to be noticeably improved this year in multiple regards.
Yeah, before we get you out of here, Bravo Dave on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, says, who's having the better fall camp at receiver, Mizell or Gene? I've been to a couple practices, and Andy Jean has not suited up in any of the practices I've been to.
Yeah, he's been out there a good bit. He's been dealing with a little bit of a minor injury. I don't think he participated in Florida's scrimmage. I think he's dealing with a little bit of a wrist issue as well. He was in a non-contact jersey. Mizell is a guy that, hits 23 miles per hour. You could see him in kick return. His speed, in creating separation is just fantastic. I just don't know how much any of those young guys really are going to be able to separate themselves. I even kind of am of the belief that maybe Tank Hawkins is ahead of both of those guys as a freshman. I think that you look at the four veterans that Florida has on their roster: Khalil Jackson, Shamir Adike, Elijah Badger, and obviously, I said veterans, but Eugene Wilson right there as well. That's going to be Florida's four go-to guys. And then you're mainly going to see, three wide receiver sets, and you're going to see a tight end on the field, Arliss Boardingham. I think that Arliss is going to have a larger role in the pass game than either of those two guys. So I do think that for either one of the sophomores, and Mizell and Gene, they have their work cut out for them to create a role. Marcus Burke right there as well. This is a loaded wide receiver room with a lot of talent, and they're going to spread the ball around and give a lot of guys opportunities. Gene has to make sure that he can be out there. And it is quite unfortunate. I know I said a couple of weeks ago that the injuries have just kind of held him back from what a lot of people felt was immense potential. He can't seem to keep a clean bill of health, which is quite unfortunate for him, because I do think that he has talent, is great in the air, catching in traffic, making guys miss. He's improved, slimmed down a little bit. He's faster. If he can just stay healthy, I do think he's going to carve out a role for himself. I just don't know when it's going to be right now.
Yeah. Graham, good stuff as always. Let everybody know how they can follow you on Twitter and any specials y'all may have running.
Hey, man, always my pleasure to join you and talk all things Gators. It's always a good time. Can't wait for the season to be here. You can join Swamp 247 right now for 30% off an annual membership. Join the conversation. We got tons of football content. I think we got 10 stories going up today. At least we're busting our tails out here to cover the Gators and bring you guys pertinent info. So make sure you follow us, join the community, reach out to me on there. And I'm looking forward to being back real soon and talk maybe this Miami game. It's going to be a really intriguing one. We'll make it happen very soon. Shane does a fantastic job. Florida fans are lucky they get to wake up and talk to the man himself.
Thank you there, Graham. I appreciate it, my friend. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon, my man.
You too. Y'all take care, man.
That's Graham Hall joining us on the Titan Emerald Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Town. Hope everybody enjoyed today's program. Have a great day. We'll be here tomorrow, folks. Take care.